What's the most important thing when you're practicing to practice, if there's like one big idea to keep in mind all the time?
My one big idea when I'm practicing is usually to make sure that the air is working, because as we said this week, when you're on stage, the only friend you have is your air. And you had a great experience this week of when you weren't feeling so great here because he got a frisbee in his face or an elbow in your face. And if things don't feel so great, the only thing you can do is blow more air. So when I'm practicing, I make sure that I'm practicing. When I take a breath, it's a good, dark breath. It's not a... And you can do that while you're practicing. When you're on stage, you have to do the job as best you can, and there's not often time to think about all this stuff. But while I'm practicing, I think getting the air going and also making sure the chin is down and the corners are tucked in and that nothing is smiling. You only asked for one, but those are two things I would make sure that I worked on.
To get away from orchestra music, what do you enjoy practicing? What's your getaway? What's your favorite etude or solo that you practice?
I love to play the Bach Cello Suites.
Okay.
The cellists hate to hear this, but I love to play the Bach Cello Suites, and I also love to play tuba etudes for the low range, because it's much more fun than practicing just low notes. For us, there's a book of Russian tuba etudes that's really fun to play. My neighbors don't really like them, but but that's why I like to practice.
How do you organize what you practice?
When you're playing a lot in the orchestra, like we do and like you do, you have an awful lot of repertoire to get through, and I think that's amazing that you do, but it's dangerous for personal practice, because once you've done a little bit of a warm-up and done a whole program, then you haven't got any chops left to play in the orchestra. So you've got to balance what you do very well. You've got to manage it very well. So on a day where you have a big rehearsal, then you've learned all this. You guys know this, and you do what's missing from that day. So if I have a rehearsal of Mahler, then my practice time will be spent doing stop notes, doing slurs, doing quiet stuff, because I'll get enough loud stuff in the orchestra. So it's a sort of balance of every day, what's coming in the next few weeks. If I have to play with my brass ensemble and I'm playing fourth horn in the orchestra all week, then when I'm practicing, I have to do some sort of high bodybuilding. It's being clever. I think that's the most important thing about practice, and not just doing a mindless warm-up, mindless etudes. If you think about everything you do while you're doing it, in the small time that we have to ourselves, and I do have only a little time that I can use for my own practice. Use it as best you can. Half an hour practice, but with your brain there and your body there and your sound good, is worth 3.5 hours of scales, in my opinion.